You're listening to ThunderQuack Podcast Network.
Hello, Internet. I'm Tyler James Nicol, and the Transformers the movie, the soundtrack, is my perfect 10.
Hello and welcome back to Perfect 10. I am your host, Michael Cohen, and this is it's only our second episode. I can't believe it. It feels I've been talking about this on the internet for the last couple months, so I feel like we should be further down the road than we are, but we're not. This is only the second episode, and I still kind of feeling out the format. Exploring it, exploring the space, as it were. And being that I am in that zone right now with this podcast, trying to kind of figure out, not so much what it is, but how we get to what I want it to be. I figured one of the safest ways to do that was to have on a person who I consider a consummate professional entertainer. A person who is just as good as I am, if not excessively better at off the cuff and just kind of going with the flow, and living inside the chaos that can be. Well, I mean, this is live to tape, but he's a little bit more used to the live on stage sort of thing, and that is Tyler James Nicol. Tyler, welcome back to ThunderQuack, but to Perfect 10 for the first time.
Hello. Yes, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
I'm in the top 10 for the Perfect 10 numerically.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you've been on when at the beginning of the pandemic when we did Quarantine Zone.
Mm-hmm.
You were on an episode of that, which is actually not that dissimilar from Perfect 10. Perfect 10 just has a little bit more of a thesis behind it. And I think you did like a regular episode of the ThunderQuack podcast at one point, subbing in for Amanda, I think.
Yeah, we talked about some. I'm going to be honest, all things I talk about become an instant blur. So
yeah.
I'm sure I've talked to you.
Oh.
I remember you.
Yeah. Oh, you know what we did? We did the Lego episode. That's what we did.
We
recently.
did adult
we
Lego.
Did the Lego. Yeah.
Speaking of, I do not like the Optimus Lego still.
Yes.
The face is weird. I don't like the face.
Yeah, it's one of those
fun.
ones. It's a little bit off, but yeah. But we're not going to talk about Lego on this one. Although Lego is a perfect 10, just as a concept, like just it's
just as a concept, it's a perfect 10.
Yeah. But we've already done that. We're gonna get into something different now. When I pitched the show to you, you instantly knew
zero hesitation
what you wanted to talk about, and I believe like what I don't know if I said this to you or if I think I maybe tweeted it or something like that, but like I knew that like the concept for the show made sense and like translated when I talked to you about it, like when I pitched you coming onto it, because your response was like, oh yeah, like Tyler gets the assignment. Like he absolutely understands the assignment.
And for those out there who maybe don't understand the assignment, and I want to clarify what I say before we get into this, I just want to lay this out there.
Yeah.
My perfect 10 isn't to say, one, this beats out all other competitors and is perfection. It is my perfect 10. This is, for me, my favorite thing of this genre. And you could pick at it. You can find other things. We're like, what about this? This is better. Do you don't like that? Sure. This is mine. This is my perfect 10. And it's this soundtrack.
Boom. Like, and that's exactly it. So like, that's the show, right? Because like when Amanda retired from ThunderQuack, and I had to like sort of sit in that for a minute and go like, okay, if I'm going to keep doing this, what do I want to do? And what it came down to was, well, I just want to talk about things that are awesome and that I love, with people that I like to talk to. That's what I want to do. Like, that's what ThunderQuack was with Amanda. That's what Quiver started as. That's what Frontlines of Clone Wars podcast started as, was talking about these things that I loved. Now, the problem with the TV show is that you're not in control from week to week.
That's true. You don't get to decide whether or not that's a good episode. This is
bingo. So, like, as Arrow went on, that became a much more challenging prospect.
Would you say that show had failed you and failed its city?
It definitely did fail its city. Although then in season 5 it came back and it redeemed itself. But then
I'm proud of myself for knowing one Arrow reference while having only watched like half a season of that show.
6 and 7, it squandered all of that goodwill that it built back up. It's such a shame. But anyway, so we're not here to talk about that. That's the point, is that, like, I don't want to talk about stuff that bums me out. I just want to talk about, like, I just want to share joy on the internet, and not in like I don't know if you've heard this term, but not in like a toxic positivity way, because like the Star Wars fandom has this aspect of it that is toxic positivity, where there are certain people in the fandom, most of them guess what, white cis het males.
I refuse to believe it. I can't imagine that happening.
In their late 30s and early 40s.
I'm in no way currently watching Gail Simone engage with Snyder trolls and just the dark spiral of why do you hate the things you love? Like, what is
yeah,
what is this?
Exactly. Yeah, and so it's like that thing of like almost to like counter the trolls, they just come out and they just go like, I don't know why you guys are hating on this thing in Star Wars, because all Star Wars is great. And it's like, well, that's just a lie. Like, that's just an out and out lie. Like, I loved Book of Boba Fett, but I fully recognize that it is flawed as a television series.
Well, in that, right? It's also not its own series, which is, but we can get into that. That's its own. Let's not get derailed from the glory we have before us. But
exactly.
Speaking of which, I bought a Lola toy today, like the little robot from Obi-Wan. I'm not telling you, I'm telling the listener at home. I don't doubt that you know.
Yeah, that's fantastic. But yeah, like, so I don't want to get into like that sort of a mode of like we're only talking about good, happy things, but it's more so just like finding things that bring us joy, and then just like, and then let's just talk about it. Right. And so when you responded with your pitch, I was like, done, sold. Like, let's go, like, print it. We're done. Like, no discussion required, because absolutely 100% I can agree with you that this is a perfect 10. Why don't you explain to those in the audience who maybe haven't experienced the glory of the Transformers : the movie - the soundtrack. Let us know exactly, like, you know what? Break it all the way down. I want you to tell me what a Transformer is. Yeah.
How long is this podcast supposed to be?
We're here for as long as it takes, Tyler.
Okay, cool. So in 1955, the Takara Company was founded.
This is like talking about Nintendo, and you're like, well, have you ever heard of Hanafuda cards?
Yeah, no, I'll go back. I don't give a shit. Let's do this thing. So Takara was founded in the 50s, and about the 70s, they started doing the thing based off of their Microman Change toys, which were actually smaller versions of their remakes of the G.I. Joe figures from Hasbro that they had licensed. They realized that, like, hey, World War figures in Japan, those aren't going to sell super awesome when they're all American. So instead they made them see-through and added robot parts inside. And then, like, these are awesome. And then plastic started costing too much. And they're like, you guys like the mini versions, right? So they made the Microman Micro Change line. And that became the Diaclone line. And then Hasbro bought the Diaclone line back from Takara and turned it into Transformers. And then later Transformers would cross over with G.I. Joe, even though they are based off original designs licensed from and repurposed by a different company. Anyways, so that's the Transformers toy line.
So what is a Transformer, though? Like, what, like a Transformer, like, as we know them, what is it?
Is a bioorganic life form from planet Cybertron. We usually deal with it from the 80s. We're dealing with the great Autobot Decepticon resource war of Cybertron, where they have left Cybertron and gone through a tunnel into time and crashed on Earth in ancient times, only to be awoken later by an earthquake to once again resume their energon-focused war with us caught in the crosshairs as humans. So that's the opening of season 1 of
Okay.
the Transformers. So keeping in mind that the Transformers, Hasbro was grabbing just every toy license they can find with it. So a thing I find really fun, and just because I love Transformers so much, is that you got your trucks, you got your cassette tapes, you got your guns. They just decided all of those work at the same scale. It's fine. Don't worry
Yeah.
about that. But one of the things that a lot of people, I don't think even notice, and this is just a Bumblebee fun fact for you. Bumblebee is a toy car. So Bumblebee wasn't based off of a car that turns into a robot and then they made a toy of it. The original Bumblebee in the Diaclone line was a toy car that turned into a little tiny robot. So he is also completely wrong in the scale of the show. I just want to point that out. So if you're like, oh, the scale is wrong. There was no universal scale. They were just grabbing everything. Jetfire's from Macross. Anyways.
Yeah. Jetfire's not even actually a Transformer.
Yeah, it's to anyone unfamiliar with Transformers, at this point, it sounds like I've had several strokes all layered on top of each other. The important thing to keep in mind is Hasbro wanted to license the transforming toy lines from Japan. They grabbed as many as they could, and they're like, hey, American kids won't just buy toys, despite how awesome they are, without a good show behind it. And we know this because GoBots came out 6 months before Transformers did, and it didn't do it did good for a little bit. It did just as good for a little bit because it was cheaper and parents liked that. But the show was not the same level. It was not the same standard of storytelling and adventure. And so that thing just tanked. Also, I'm going to just say GoBots aren't as good as Transformers. Because,
I mean, like, I don't think that you're gonna.
It's not breaking
I don't
new
think
ground.
This is not a controversial statement.
I will say that naming your motorcycle character Psykill is a great choice, but it's the simplicity of the GoBots. You just like two flips, you're done.
Yeah, it's not to say that GoBots weren't cool, right?
Yeah,
it's just to say that Transformers were at the time like the coolest, right? Like, because Transformers even essentially like predate. I think like the majority of the things that we consider that like the 80s pop culture stuff, like Ninja Turtles and stuff, the stuff that bleeds a little bit more into the 90s. Like I feel like G.I. Joe and Transformers specifically live in the 80s, right? Like because even being born in 85, Transformers like just missed me. Right, it's not that I wasn't fully aware of what a Transformer was, and I had Transformer toys, but my brother, who was born in 81, was much more of a Transformers fan than he ever was a Ninja Turtles, or even like getting into like the 90s stuff, like the Spider-Man, X-Men stuff, Gargoyles, Darkwing Duck, that sort of Disney afternoon era. I feel like there was like sort of the trinity of the 80s would have been Transformers, G.I. Joe, and then coming on in the mid 80s with He-Man and Masters of the Universe, right? Like I think
just to put nostalgia in some people's heads listening, I will say the day that Disney Adventures, those little books, were no longer available out by the check stands for like grocery stores, we lost something as a culture when you couldn't just get your Disney updates in the Disney Adventures little like Reader's Digest.
That's that's a whole other episode. Like Disney Adventures is a perfect 10 episode all by itself, and we could get into that because like when I think back on stuff and it's like, how did I know about these things? How did I know about Boy Meets World coming to TGIF that I cared? And then the answer is always, oh yeah, I must have read about it in Disney Adventures because there was no internet. That's how we got our news.
Yep, that's just how we did it.
Yeah, that's how I knew that Beasties was coming on TV. That's how I knew what Reboot was, right? Like all of that stuff.
Okay,
but so getting back.
The TV show comes out. The TV show comes out. All right, so we got this TV show out. The toy line's doing great. Hasbro is, I imagine, a money printing factory fueled by joy and other powdered items. But don't want to get specific. I still want to have a job later. But Marvel is making the comics and naming the characters. Bob Budiansky is like responsible for so many of the amazing character names we have for that. But they've run into the problem, which is they got more toys coming out, and an ensemble cast in a TV show can only be so big before you stop caring about people.
Yeah.
So on paper, how do you murder your cast? And like this is pre like Buffy episodes. This is pre Game of Thrones. Transformers is about to just lay waste to a childhood with no thought of the aftermath.
Yeah.
And that is done through the absolutely beautiful 1986 classic film, The Transformers: the movie. Beyond good, beyond evil, beyond your wildest imagination, as the tagline reads.
Yeah,
Which,
and
so
and
that
and
takes place.
absolutely, I mean, like for 1986, that was absolutely true.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I will say too, like in the 80s, you know, like we for people that lived through the golden era of 2D animated Disney films,
Mhm.
we were used to going to the theater, having our mind blown by some animation. You look back, particularly, I want to say on the Shout Factory remasters of this movie, because I own every anniversary cut of Transformers, because of course I do. But you look back at these remasters of it, and that is a beautifully animated film. Like genuinely, not just like they like, you know, like whether or not you like the story or it's a bunch of fighting toys or whatnot, like holy crap, the detail in that thing.
Yeah.
It's North American animation. Nowadays when like you joke about like, oh, it's the North American version of an anime, it's like how dumbed down can they make it, how simplified can the line work be? But
Yeah.
like that thing is, every frame is a work of art. It is goddamn
Oh god,
beautiful.
the Unicron stuff is just
Right?
like, because like when you get to Unicron, like what you're talking about is a very simple concept. What if the Death Star was a transformer, right? Like, you know, that was the pitch. They were like, we're making a movie. What's the biggest movie in this? Like, I mean, like honestly, at the time, 1986, what's the biggest movie?
Right.
It's the Star Wars trilogy, right? So it's like, how do we
I
make our Transformers into Star Wars? Well, we'll get the guy from Star Wars to be the new Megatron. They kind of missed the mark on that one, but they thought they were on the right track. I mean, like, I'm
it
still
was
happy with the casting, but
um
they picked the wrong Star
they picked the wrong star.
franchise.
I was gonna say, I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure we got a trek off that war, but
yeah,
still.
yeah.
And
No,
also, if you want to describe
they slightly
Unicron,
missed, but yeah,
and this could be an error. This is just the rumor of the internet of what he said. I believe Orson Welles was quoted as saying, "I play a big toy that eats smaller toys," and this was his last role, as far as I know. Besides like some unreleased stuff later, but like this
yeah,
was his like last recorded role before his
yeah,
passing. And
yeah.
bless his heart for obviously not giving a shit, but that really works for the character. Like Unicron's detachment from emotion actually does make
Yeah.
him more menacing.
The way in which Unicron does not care about the plot line of this film is like, it does absolutely sell that, like, oh wow, he's like a cosmic being, like we're ants to him, all of us, right?
Yeah.
The Transformers are not even a thing he's too concerned about, much less human beings.
So
But
for those
of course, that's his
unfamiliar
downfall.
with the Transformers the movie, first of all, pause this podcast. We will wait the
Yeah,
hour and a half. You can come right back. Enjoy. But now that you're back, congratulations. You're welcome. The Transformers the movie follows 20 years past season 2, which is an amazing time jump in a kids cartoon show. To like, oh yeah, by the way, if you didn't watch the
yeah,
movie when you're coming back, it's 2 decades later. Like, just have fun with that.
yeah.
Um,
In the far flung future of 2007, right? Is that
2005, I believe.
2005? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because 20 years canonically from the 85 start.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so and then the opening scene. So a lot of people for this movie remember it as the death of Optimus Prime. Spoilers for a movie from the 80s, but and that's because it's very impactful. They linger on that bedside. As someone who has been bedside on the passing of a loved one, that scene is pretty accurate to how it feels. Like, it's not great. It is a stab in the heart of your childhood.
Yeah.
But also, like, if you were a big fan of the Transformers at the start, like Ratchet gets shot, Prowl, you see fire billow out of his mouth as he just like unceremoniously eats one. Like, it is a brutal, like, oh
Yeah.
man, my favorite characters. I like the bad guys. I like Megatron and Starscream. Well, watch them die on screen, I guess. Like,
it's the thing that I love the most about the Transformers Cole in the movie is that, like, if you watch the first 2 seasons of Transformers. Like all of these battles are just like GI Joe. It's just lasers
Oh yeah,
like
there's never
zinging
stakes.
past
No one
everybody.
has ever died in this
Yeah,
show.
no, but like rarely
That's
do the
not true.
blasts
Jetfire
even.
dies in his opening episode when he's
That's true.
Skyfire,
That's
but
true.
still.
Rarely do the blasts even like connect, right?
Yeah.
Like usually an episode is banter, 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 and then somebody shoots a cliff, and then the cliff, maybe some rocks fall on somebody, and that's like the most violent it ever gets in a Transformers. Most of the time, it's just the Decepticons found some energon, and we got to stop them from taking that energon, because if they get the energon, then they'll win, right? And so it's just we just got to stop them wherever, like they're getting it from the whatever, the Hoover Dam. I don't know. Obviously that's more of a modern Transformers reference,
they straight up got stuff from the Hoover Dam before.
Okay, they do that.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
but I'm not misremembering.
That's no, and it all just comes out of a cube in Soundwave's chest. It's a weird series. Anyways, so this movie, you're in theater,
so
you're watching
the movie
this movie,
just like it goes right in, and it's just like they've been fighting for 20 years, but like this time everyone's playing for keeps for some reason. Yeah.
So you come in this, we got like the usual cast of characters. You got your Peter Cullen Optimus Prime, you got your Frank Welker Megatron, Soundwave, Corey Burton's showing up, by the way. If you've never clicked on Corey Burton's name, look it up. He's done a lot of stuff in your childhood.
Yeah,
I want to say, anytime I say another human's name, I'm not vouching for them as a person, just in case years down the line we find stuff. But that's just a disclaimer I do when I talk about other people these days. But then you start seeing down this cast. You got like Leonard Nimoy, Judd Nelson, Eric Idle. We've already mentioned Orson Welles, Unsolved Mysteries, Robert Stack. Like you've got a lot to work with here. The one girl character, there's a lot. Anything you want, it's here.
Yeah. The glaring oversight from the TV series of like, wait, where do baby Transformers come from? And they cleared that up for us, though.
Yeah, but most importantly, what you have in this is a performer who's not saying anything in it, but they are making the goddamn movie, and their name is Vince DiCola.
Yes,
and Vince DiCola lays down the score for the Transformers in the movie, and it is a thing of truth and beauty. It is a magnificent backing score. And so that's me now transitioning us into Transformers the movie - original motion picture soundtrack.
Yeah. I mean, like fresh off of Rocky IV, which I mean, like, watch Rocky IV. Okay, if you haven't watched Rocky IV, you can stop the podcast here and go and watch Rocky 1 through 4. You can stop there if you really want to, and then just wait for Creed. But I guess Balboa is maybe worthwhile, but not really.
But you come back and you tell me that Polly's Robot didn't have an awesome theme song.
But Rocky IV and the Transformers the movie soundtrack, like these scores, they are the same score. They are the same score. I'm not saying that he recycled music. I'm just saying that if you put these two scores into a playlist on shuffle, it's like, yeah, cool. But you know what? That's exactly the gravitas that we needed in Transformers the movie, right? Is we needed the exact same level of gravitas that Rocky IV has, and that is somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but also 100% serious.
Well, if you're gonna have a track on the track listing called Death of Optimus Prime, I want some gravitas to that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Like the guy goes from composing the music for the, I don't know if there's actually music over the death of Apollo Creed, because it's kind of chaotic in that movie. Sorry, spoilers for Rocky IV. But like both of these movies that he does the score for within a year, like they both start with a beloved character just dying on screen in the most like heartbreaking way imaginable. I mean, the way that Optimus just like the color fades from him, and it's like, how do we show that a cartoon has died?
Right? Like no. We want there to be no question in a child's mind that their robot space truck dad has just been done. He is out. He is finished now.
Yeah, this guy's not coming back, you guys.
We literally are going to have another Autobot standing there showing a readout of his flat line. Like, we are going to give this one.
Yeah.
So this movie comes out, and this soundtrack is just wall to wall from track 1 The Touch to track 10 Dare to Be Stupid performed by Weird Al. One of the best goddamn soundtracks for getting hyped in the history, because it's got the peaks, it's got the valleys, it's got a band that was renamed by the studio for the release of the album. Sorry, Kick-Axe. And it is just magnificent. And I want to say, I was looking up the other day, Lion, who redid the Transformers theme for it,
Mhm.
improved that theme so much.
Oh, it's the definitive version, right? Like
Yeah.
every one of these 80s properties that gets a movie, eventually, they redo the theme songs, because the theme songs were the thing in the 80s and 90s, right? And you can find oh, which one of these movies actually did the best one, right? But Transformers the movie is one of the few, I feel, that like right off the bat, in the same era, managed to iterate on their theme song and like make it the theme song, to the extent that like I believe when it comes back as G2, right, it like they use the movie theme song in the show,
Yeah, well,
right?
so if you listen to, and I was actually watching a breakdown of the theme song, which I wish I could remember whose video I was watching at. When we post this later, I'll try to like tweet it or something. But he was mentioning how in the original theme song for it, it was it's a jingle. Like they literally, it was a good jingle. It's real catchy. But when they converted it to a theme song, there's like audio stutters to it. There's literal parts
Mm,
where it just like breaks the rhythm and like restarts certain parts of it in the background because they were trying to loop it into something longer and just whiffed it. So there's like the line of like Autobots fight the battle to the Decepticons, and like I don't have to say all the lyrics here. You know I know the
yeah,
lyrics.
yeah.
I'm not gonna say, but like it goes like the Decepticons, and that like breaks the rhythm. And in the new theme
Mm,
song by Lion, they actually give it like a little beat of like of bum bum the Decepticon, and like it just everything with
yeah,
that theme song. It's just like you want to just be standing shit like yeah, you show them,
yeah,
you transform the
yeah.
hell out of this situation.
Yeah, it cranks it. I mean, like the whole soundtrack, right? The whole soundtrack cranks it to 11. All of these, like all of the lyrical songs, right? All of the original songs composed, not just the score, but like the actual songs, are just
Every
all
single
like,
song is about how you're awesome and there's
yeah,
stuff in your way and we get that it's going to be hard, but goddamn you're making it through this. And it's just so motivational.
yeah.
Even Dare to
Um,
Be Stupid, it's like, hey, you're an idiot, but you got this.
but yeah, it's a song about how like being an idiot is the coolest thing you could possibly do right now, which does actually make sense in the context of the film, right? Like
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
when we meet the Junkions, that's exactly what we got to do. We gotta communicate to them on their level, and they are dumb. Uh, they
So,
they learned how to communicate via television. So
but yeah,
yeah.
all of them are just like pure. And I mean, like, it was a chosen sound. Everything about this movie was a calculated ad.
Mhm.
And like I'm not pretending that it wasn't. And what I want to say is it worked. They calculated it. Like they were
Yeah.
trying really hard to get a certain emotion. They again forgot that children have emotional connections to characters. That was a bit of a whoopsie ding on their fault. The story, as I've been told it before, was that there was a delay in the GI Joe film, and it was actually supposed to come out first with the death of Duke.
Mhm.
um and you could see the reaction was, so Optimus dies in this one and the GI Joe film's about to come out, and they're like, hey, so Duke's gonna just go into a coma.
Yeah.
And they're like,
Yeah.
he got shot in the chest with a snake was in his chest now. And they're like, heck of a coma, I don't know what to tell you. Like,
Look, comas are mysterious, all right?
yeah, comas are get out of jail free card on the we accidentally ruined childhood. And there's a lot of people like, oh, this ruined my childhood. Like, I can understand this film genuinely, like, breaking something in a child
Yeah.
watching it,
Oh
which
yeah,
again
for
is
sure.
magic.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that's where this soundtrack comes from. I listen to it at least once a week. And it is one of my favorite pop culture artifacts in the world. I think we're up to speed now on like where it exists in the world. Is that where we wanted to get for this? Is a half hour into this record or something?
Yeah, no, I think so, and I mean we've talked a little bit of the how it came to be and that sort of thing.
Mhm. It's a
Um,
toy ad. At the end of the
yeah,
day, this was a toy ad from 1986 indicating that they were moving from the season 2 toys into the season 3 toys.
yeah,
Galvatron's in the mix, Hot Rodimus is in the mix,
we're
Um,
going, yeah, this, yeah, because it's like I the movie ones are I guess Gen 3, right? Or are they like Gen
I
2.5?
think it's Gen because I know Gen 2 Megatron is the green camouflaged tank.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. But then like Galvatron and Megatron started becoming two different characters, which who does that? And then it was weird.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean,
I,
like
I
like
would
Ke-
I would look more. I'm literally my microphone right now is on my stack of Transformers DVDs. That's what I first grabbed to like stack it up higher towards be a better angle. So it's hard for me to look up that way. So
um yeah, I mean like Gen 2 Optimus never appears in the cartoon series. That's one of the things is that like cuz he's a completely different kind of truck, right? Like he's a cuz the Optimus that everybody sort of knows and loves is the actually, you know what? In the year 2022, I don't know that I can actually say that cuz kids now have grown up with Optimus uh from the Bay films, right?
well, yeah, there's that.
Which like the Optimus in the Michael Bay films actually is more designed after Gen 2 Optimus than it is after the original Optimus
He is
Prime.
also obscenely violent. That
Yeah, well,
Optimus, like speaking of just like people like, oh, they killed Optimus in the Michael Bay films. That Optimus is the least heroic leader of a team of heroes in the history of film.
yeah, he
Like
will literally slice a dude in half with his
he
sword.
slices a dude in
Like,
half. He said, "Give me your face" to someone and ripped their face off.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
he has removed heads and spines before. My guy is brutal.
yeah, yeah. Those movies, I fail to capture the spirit of what made the Transformers.
Bumblebee captures the
Bumblebee,
spirit.
yeah,
Bumblebee is
yeah,
magnificent.
course corrects. But it was too little, too late at that point because what was the one right before it? The last night,
The
I
last
think,
night.
and that one poisoned the well so much that they were like, okay, we're going back to the 80s, and it's like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? These movies were never in the 80s, and like, yeah, it's a reboot, and then people are like, it's a reboot, and they're like, well, it's a kind of a reboot, and you're
So
like, no,
those
it
movies,
has to be a reboot.
the later movies starred Mark Wahlberg as a scientist, because of course he is. But in the 97 film Boogie Nights, Mark Wahlberg sang The Touch by Stan Bush, which was track 1 off the soundtrack. I got us back on track. We're good, everybody. We're doing
There we
great.
go. And
We're back into it.
So Stan Bush. Here's the thing about Stan Bush that I find
If a man has
infinitely
ever ridden a
fascinating.
career off of a song.
Like The Touch is such a seminal 80s banger, right? Like it
Yeah.
is just it is it's the thesis of like 80s hair metal sort of like that vibe, right? And not to mention the fact that its whole purpose is to sell toys, to sell chunks of plastic to children, to unwise children. Um,
Some of it was also diecast metal.
that's fair. That's fair.
Thank you.
I and yet like Stan Bush, nobody knows who Stan Bush is unless you're a Transformers fan. So it's one of those things of like him being like so iconically like the sound of the 80s. I mean, like I had tweeted earlier that I think that this soundtrack might be like the most 80s movie soundtrack ever, right? And like Stranger Things is like, hey, we're gonna manufacture an 80s soundtrack for our TV show. And I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't come anywhere near. It doesn't
No,
come
and
anywhere
it's
close.
not even that long of a soundtrack. It's only
No.
37 minutes. 37 and change. But like it's a pretty short soundtrack. We're in and out. It's not a playlist. Like I want to say like in terms of great soundtrack, like you want to go James Gunn and just find his playlist for stuff. That man
Yeah.
curates a playlist. It's magnificent. But in terms of like there's like 4 bands. There's Stan Bush, Energy, Vince DiCola, Kick Axe, also Spectre General in this, and then like special appearance by Weird Al. Like that's
Yeah.
Lion doing the soundtrack, doing the theme song.
The theme song, yeah.
Um, man, if I just saying, like, I probably should have Wikipedia open to do this, but this is just.
It's better that you don't. It's better that you don't.
Oh, I am alone
Yeah,
in the
just
room a lot. Anyways, um,
yeah, but
but
by
yeah, but like,
design.
it's
So
just these couple of bands, and
yeah,
like every song they made for this, we're like, that's our career now. This is like if we don't play this anytime we perform anywhere, we're gonna have
yeah,
people disappointed. These songs from this soundtrack are what we're doing for the rest of our lives now.
yeah. Yeah, like most bands from the '80s have like 2 or 3 songs that you know them for, but yeah, Stan Bush, no, it's just the one. It's really just the one. And I yeah, every time that they've tried to like go back and recapture that magic, it just doesn't work. But it's funny that
Stan Bush tried to do it for the new movies, and he added a
yeah,
rap.
yeah,
And it
yeah.
wasn't good. It wasn't a good
He
choice.
he added a rap 2 decades after that was the cool thing to do. Like
Yeah.
it was like Stan, it's not 1993. This isn't what
No.
we do anymore. Um, but it's so funny because right now there's like a meme going around on Twitter, and I'm sure probably TikTok more so than Twitter, but I'm not on TikTok that much. But the if this movie came out in 2007,
2007. Yeah.
and it's always like it's like the end of the movie, and then it like a Linkin Park song plays, right? And then the biggest joke of all of it is that then people are like they 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 do like the Transformers
It cuts pretty good.
2007
Yeah.
and it's like, is that not just how that movie ends? Like I'm
Yeah.
pretty
Like,
sure
I
that's how that
can't.
movie ends. Like I don't know, because I'm not gonna go back and watch Transformers
We are here.
2007.
We are waiting. Am I?
Yeah,
Like, it's
yeah.
just.
Um but it's funny because like I think that kids who were like I like in their early teens in 2007 probably feel very similarly about that movie that we do about Transformers the movie from '86, right? Like that, like
Well,
for
if
them
you're a
they're like,
real
this is what
child
it
of the
is.
internet, you recognize the Unicron medley from being the opening of Newgrounds.com. 'Cause it used to be when you opened up Newgrounds, you'd get like the doo-doo-doom doom, doo-doo-doom doom, doo-doo-doom doom, doo-doo-doom. Like, you'd get that I'm just saying, it's in there. It's imprinted in my brain. But so this
Yeah,
soundtrack, if you ever need an uplift, you got. I'm gonna list out. I don't know which one of these is your favorite. I don't know how the format of this show works. I'm talking about favorite tracks off the soundtrack already.
no, yeah, go for it.
So, like, out of the ones with lyrics, you've got "The Touch" by Stan Bush, you've got "Dare" by Stan Bush, you've got "Nothing's Gonna Stand in Our Way" by Spectre General, "Hunger" by Spectre General, and I mean the theme. Those are like the one, and then "Dare to Be Stupid."
Mhm.
Um, but all of those are great. I don't know which one's your favorite. I think you tweeted it, but I let you say it. I think it was.
Yeah, for me it is Dare, and it's specifically because of sort of like its placement in the movie.
Which remind
Just
people, please.
yeah, well, I mean, like it's like that's pretty much like from the beginning of the film, right? Like,
Mhm.
it's sort of our introduction to Hot Rod, and so it almost in a way like it. I mean, the touch is also kind of his thing as well, but the touch is more about the oh my
Passing of
god
the torch kind of thing.
yeah, the Matrix, right? Like I was gonna say the spark, it's like it's not the spark, it's the Matrix in this one.
They didn't really start doing
um
Spark stuff until Beast Wars.
yeah, yeah, and then it became the
Well,
all spark in the movies, right? In the newer
yeah.
movies. Yeah, so like the touch I associate much more with the Matrix, and the way that like the Force theme is sort of is, in Star Wars can kind of apply to anybody using the
Mhm.
Force. The touch is like anybody who gets the Matrix of leadership, and like any time that sort of is a concern in the film, we get a little bit of the touch, right? And obviously when he transforms into Rodimus Prime, we get like the fullness of the touch, and that stuff is awesome. But there's just something about, like, I really love the opening of the movie. Like, I really love the world that they set up of like
Mhm.
like the Autobots have been here for 20 years. It's actually like for the most part it's been peaceful for a while. Like, they've defeated the Decepticons, we think, right? Like, and so like they've built Oh man, what's the name of the city? I can't think of it right now.
It's Autobot City.
Autobot City.
It's not that
Dodoy.
complex.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, there's like
Uh,
Metroplex and stuff later in the series,
yeah,
but
yeah,
if
yeah.
memory serves, and I
It's
could be
yeah, no, it's
wrong, but if
you're
memory
right.
serves,
You're right. You're right.
it's Autobot City. Yep.
And we get it comes at you so fast at the beginning of the movie where they're like it's 20 years later, and also Sam Witwicky has a son, his name's Daniel, he's gonna be the kid in this one because it's 20 years later, so he's old now. Also like he's in space, like the kid from the TV show. Yeah, he's in space with a bunch of the Autobots, and they're
And
making
he's going to
space.
say the word shit once so we can get a
Yeah.
PG-13 rating.
And Hot Rod, like it's just this great introduction to the character of like him sort of being this very like seminal mid 80s like you can't tell me what to do kind of teenage character, voiced by Judd Nelson perfectly, right? Like what perfect casting in the era of the Breakfast Club. You get you get Judd Nelson to come in and play this sort of rebel without a cause Autobot, who like the fate of the galaxy is going to depend on, right? So and they're fishing and everything's like just this, it's just this like wonderful perfect world that they've created that you're like, I want to go to there. I want to hang out in Autobot City and go fishing with Hot Rod. And then everything goes to hell and everyone starts dying, right? Like it's just completely obliterated. And then the character, like Hot Rod goes on such a journey throughout it of like learning what it means to be a hero. And meanwhile, like we've introduced oh my god, why can't I think of anybody's names? The guy who's supposed to be the leader of the
Ultra
Autobots.
Magnus.
Ultra Magnus, thank you. Who is basically just like a bigger, more powerful Optimus, right? Like we look at him and we're like, you're like Optimus
in the
Prime,
toy
but
line,
yeah.
he is literally a white Optimus Prime with another set of toys on top of him. Like that
Yeah,
is
with a
genuinely
bigger trailer, right?
He is
Yeah.
Optimus Prime Plus. Like that is
Yeah.
what he is in the toys.
Yeah, so we're introduced to this character and it's like, well, obviously he's going to be the new leader of the Autobots. But you know, like if you pay attention to the lyrics in Dare, you would know right off the bat. Come on, this Ultra Magnus guy does it. Like he might on paper, like his resume might look like he's the right guy to lead the Autobots, but I think we all know, because it's the 80s, I think we all know what it's actually going to take to lead the Autobots, and that's the heart of a hero, right? Like
that's what, Trans Am.
Yeah, and he's got to be a badass car with flames
orange
on him.
flame paint job.
Yeah, and this is the telling thing, right? Like my two favorite Transformers from like the old school stuff are Hot Rod and Sideswipe, like which are basically the same type of car, right? They're both, you know, like
you're gonna do Sideswipe. You're not even
car.
gonna do Sunstreaker, which is just Sideswipe yellow.
No, because the Sideswipe's red. So
yeah,
like what why would I want the yellow? Just like I like Cliff Jumper.
Phrases are why I'm doing so great on dating apps right now.
Yeah. I like Cliff Jumper more than I like Bumblebee, right? Same reason. Red's better.
Because you like a character that dies a bunch. I got you.
Yeah. But yeah, like so I don't know, like I associate that song so heavily with that opening of the movie and sort of like the beginning of the arc of that character that I think like that's the one that like, because well, what are we talking about? What's the thing in a soundtrack that's all hype? What's the measure of success, right? And for me, it's like, which one of these songs gets you the most hype? And for me, it's absolutely Dare. Which bold choice to have a song called Dare and then another song called Dare to Be Stupid on the same soundtrack. I mean, like, yeah, they did it and they didn't even care. They were like, whatever, you know what? It's the Transformers : the movie. So that's that for me. That's
fair.
That's
a good choice. Yeah. It's a solid choice. My song is also for a Hot Rod scene, just not that Hot Rod scene. Because
Okay.
personally,
Yeah.
I like one of my songs is actually a cover song on this one. So this song was originally written, according to my notes, for the 1984 film Savage Streets, starring Linda Blair, which has an amazing poster. And don't read anything else about that movie. For the love of God, don't bring that movie up. Terrible things happen in that movie. Like, you know, all the words that would get this demonetized? That movie. But if you want to see a real busty Linda Blair holding a crossbow, the poster's fine for that. Anyways, so that
The
was
poster
written.
is everything you need and none of the stuff you don't.
Just
Right?
don't read the tagline on the poster either, because even that is actually, like, I'm not even joking. It's really, really bad. I'm laughing. It's a deeply violent, terrible movie. Anyways, but that song was written for that and then covered by Kick Axe turned Spectre General. And their cover is so much better than the original. It really, really
Sorry,
kicks it in.
did you say the title of the song?
Oh, sorry. Nothing's Gonna Stand in Our Way
Okay.
is my favorite one on that. And so that plays. Hot Rod is fixing up Cup. He's underwater on Quintessa, and he's just like fighting robot squids and Sharkticons, and just giving them the. He suddenly has a buzzsaw hand. He is just like giving them the business. It's the first time when you're like, hey, we're all right with this guy. Like at the beginning, you know, it's like, oh, hey, we're having a fun adventure. But this is one where it's like, nah, he's got this handled. He's fine.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, that's the turning point in the movie, right? Like that because that's kind of when we're at our point of like, I don't know if we're going to be able to pull this one off, guys. Like everybody's died, and like all of the good Transformers are not here. All we have left is the old guy who tells war stories, the girl one, and the cocky kid, and the leader that doesn't listen to anybody, that just says that he's the leader, right? And we're kind of like, oh, I don't know if we have the makings of a team of worthy Autobots to succeed the OG, right? But that's where it's like
I'm just
yeah,
quickly sending you the poster for Savage Streets so you can see the terrible, terrible things.
Oh, good.
But yes, very important. But so, and then I just want to say, so this brings me naturally. I wanted to do that. So there wasn't the setup for it, but my brain is now telling me this is the setup for it. Speaking of cover songs, if you want to truly enjoy the soundtrack for the Transformers : the movie hyphen the soundtrack, there is a band called Cybertronic Spree that puts on cosplay of the Transformers, lead singers. You got Hot Rod and RC going up there, and their covers of this soundtrack. I did the Kickstarter for it. I paid the monies. I got the patches, the pins, the stickers. It is fantastic. They just slay that synth rock. And like, it is a truly great way to enjoy this soundtrack. They've even started making their own songs based off this style of stuff. And like, it is a gosh darn treat to listen to, but do not deprive yourself of also watching the music videos for it, because their Dare to Be Stupid cover, I will say, it's hard to cover a Weird Al song. They did a very good job.
Yeah, it's the funny thing about that is that, like, obviously Weird Al, known as the guy who does parody covers of other people's songs, very few, in my opinion. Now, Curtis Finley, who listeners would know, the host of the Epic Marvel podcast, he is the biggest Weird Al fan that I know, so he'd get mad at me for saying this. I don't personally think that Weird Al has that many like original songs that are, like, bangers. Like, yeah, like there are some cute ones, but most of his original songs, I can't take it or leave it.
Okay, I gotta step in.
Yeah, you go ahead.
His original songs aren't his well-known songs.
Yes.
His original songs, and most of his original songs will still be in this like style alikes rather than sound alike stuff. But like, he's got one called Dog Eat Dog that's like a Devo cover one. He's got one called like Close But No Cigar. That's another solid just one, like the ones that aren't doing that. If you're telling me the Weird Al love ballads aren't bangers, I don't know where we can go in this conversation from here. Okay. But like, you got it.
I'm just saying from my personal perspective, right? Like, but
they're not his A-list songs. I will say they're not his fan favorites. Besides Dare to Be Stupid. Dare to Be Stupid is by
but
far his best.
but yeah, the connection to the Transformers, I think, makes Dare to Be Stupid this one that sort of
I
stands
have to
out.
say, I misspoke earlier. Dare to Be Stupid is his Devo sound alike. Dog Eat Dog is his not They Might Be Giants. Talking Heads sound alike. And if
Okay.
I didn't correct that, it was gonna bother me.
Yeah, yeah. Nobody
Thank you.
listening to this podcast was going to correct you, right?
No, I
But
was gonna listen to it
yeah,
later and shout at myself through it. So I
yeah.
just need to know. Don't worry, we got it, bud. We corrected
You
it. It's fine.
you were gonna tweet angrily at yourself,
But
and
Dare to
cancel
Be
your
Stupid is such a
yeah.
Devo song that like
Oh my
Devo is
god.
like, yeah, is that one of ours? Is that
Yeah,
ours?
yeah, yeah. Mark Mothersbaugh is like, all right, all right. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, we can play that. We'll put it in our set list. It's
There's
fine.
no way they have not played Dare to Be Stupid in
Oh
concert.
my god.
That's happened.
Yeah. But yeah, so to cover Weird Al, I think is it's a bold move,
Mhm.
right? Like that's a very bold move to cover Weird Al, the guy who is known for covering other people. I mean, not necessarily straight covers, but you guys know what I mean. But yeah, I mean, Dare to
Also,
Be Stupid
what a
is
talent though for someone who has covered every genre of music known to man. Like just
oh
you
my
know,
god.
not I'm
Weird, yeah,
surely the first person who has said I think Weird Al's a pretty good musical artist. I think I'm the first one to say
yeah.
that. No Grammys at all have ever said this.
No, there's no like unequivocal truth out there
There
to
is
prove
no
your point.
mockumentary biopic coming out starring Daniel Radcliffe about Weird Al
Oh my
Yankovic
god,
that we have to worry
man.
about.
Okay, so quick sidetrack because we're talking about Weird
I
Al.
got us there. I got us there.
What when the trailer dropped for Weird, all right, for the movie that's coming out in just a couple of months, I'm so excited. I watched that and was like, yes, of course. Of course, Weird Al's biopic is an absurd farce, right? Like, it's not like, why would anybody make an actual biopic about
Oh
Weird
yeah.
Al's career? Because his career is like interesting. And you want to watch like the VH1 behind the music or whatever. It's like there's definitely like his rise to fame is definitely an interesting story, but it is not the thing of like dramatization, right? Like,
It's a polite
he's
man doing hard work and asking people nicely if it was okay
bingo,
if he did that.
bingo, yeah, yeah, yeah. The most salacious thing was the time that he got permission, and then that person was like, "I don't like that you did that," and he was like, "But you said it was okay."
And I think he
Uh,
did say that Prince said he could never cover any of his songs, and he had
yes.
to do that. Like he's
But yeah, yeah, but then people online reacting, some people who claim that they are Weird Al fans being like, this does not look like the true Weird Al. This makes no sense. Daniel Radcliffe is doing a terrible job of being Weird Al Yankovic, and it's like, you
yeah.
guys, Al picked Daniel Radcliffe
And
and was there the whole time.
yeah.
This is his choice.
I
You
want to
are not
say
in on the joke about the guy who spent an entire career making jokes out of music. Like, come on, figure it out. Get me an accordion, right? Like, it's just like, to me, it's so pitch perfect. And if there's no Transformers content in that movie, that's the only thing that'll disappoint me. Is that like, I
that's
feel
fair.
like they have to at least like hit that note of like, yeah, I want it to be the moment where they go like, oh, you've sold out. Like where it's like, oh, it used to be about the music, Al, but now you're just making songs for toys, right?
What,
And
so Eric
like
Idle can turn into a motorcycle and run people over to your song?
which when you actually like say it that way is the most Weird Al thing Weird Al could do, right? But yeah, no. I mean, like, if you've seen UHF, then you know that this movie is exactly a Weird Al movie, like just from
The
the trailer. You're
documentary
like,
UHF?
yeah, the documentary film UHF.
If you're
Yeah.
this far into the podcast, by the way, I just want to say thank you for sticking with what has to be just one of the nerdiest deep dive rambles that I've enjoyed in quite some time. Like, there's bless your heart for listening to this fight. Your code phrase is potato salad, and just put
There
that
you go.
wherever you heard this podcast, and then I'll tell you you did a great job and that you're handsome or beautiful or whatever polite compliment you want.
That's
Potato
fantastic.
salad.
Potato salad. Potato
Uh,
salad's the word. I listen. I say this with the most love and admiration for our audience imaginable. It is not a big audience, right? Especially like the new podcast. This is not
we have dozens
a
of fans,
yeah,
baker's dozens.
yeah. But the people who are listening, oh,
Oh,
they're
wait,
gonna listen all the
you
way.
clicked on the title of this episode. You knew
Yeah,
what you
yeah,
were
yeah,
here for. So I just wanted to detract quickly to talk about how soundtracks are, for my life, my favorite version of buying music.
yeah. Mhm.
Because it's a curated playlist to a mood. So like another great soundtrack out there, if you don't listen to just the Dumb and Dumber soundtrack, great soundtrack. It's like you think of a lot of the ones where it's like any movie about like, oh, it's about music, or like, you know, like I said earlier, like your James Gunn's or your like Tarantino's where they've curated this nice soundtrack. Like, yeah, it's good and good. You get some that sneak in there where you're like, this slaps way harder than it has any right to be in like a row. Like, I do own on vinyl, of course, the Prince Batman soundtrack in case you ever need to
Mm,
do a little Vicky Vale or Bat Dance. But look up some soundtracks to your favorite films. You're gonna find yourself like instantly transported into the mood of the film, which is a
yeah.
special gift of this like now that's what I call music kind of stuff of like getting you right into the movie without watching the movie. They're magical gifts.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I soundtracks are essentially the only thing that I listen to. Whether it's like a score, like a John Williams, or a Michael Giacchino, being my sort of top two composers, right? But then like, yeah, I discovered Jeff Buckley as a musician via the Vanilla Sky soundtrack, which I thought was just the greatest movie that had ever been made when I saw that movie. And and then I wasn't 17 anymore, and I realized that I wasn't probably correct about that. But what I did take away from it is that Jeff Buckley is an amazing musician. And so the only reason that I'm a fan of Jeff Buckley is because of a movie soundtrack. Like so many of my musical choices, because I'm just not a music guy, like it's exactly what you're saying. Like it's they're all tied to um like kind of going back to capturing those moments, those moods. John Mayer, who is one of my other favorite musicians, I love John Mayer because the first time I heard a John Mayer song was in an episode of Smallville, right? And so it's like, so John Mayer is associated with Superman, and I love Superman, therefore I love John Mayer music, right? Like, and so everything that I listen to goes back to a
I'm gonna
soundtrack
give
at some
people
point.
another composer to look up for that's been doing a bunch of stuff they've probably heard but might not have heard the name of because I don't think is really like name brand for stuff. Is Tyler Bates.
Yes.
Which if you don't know him, you're talking like the John Wick movies, the
Yep.
Deadpool stuff. I think he just did Day Shift, the new one for that. But like if you want like an action pumping, like big time get into the mood for stuff, Tyler Bates is gonna have your back on just some like absolute knock the windows around music to have in there. Also, I believe has done music for the Transformers stuff. At least the video games. I believe I saw his name. So.
Nice. Yeah. To me, it's like yeah. I'm like pop music doesn't really, um, it doesn't really pull me in that much, right? Like it, but unless you put that song in a movie that I love, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden now
Oh,
I
as soon as
care
you can
about it,
connect
right?
it to a scene, yeah. I there's a
Yeah,
sad amount of I have TikTok playlists just because it's like, you know what? TikTok did some good music choices. There's some stuff in here I like.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, so it's so funny that's but I think that's a very geek commonality, right? Like I
It's
think a lot of
the
us
linked
probably pull our
emotion
music.
of everything.
Yeah.
You get these songs and they are forever tied to these movie moments you love where just playing the song kind of transports you through your
Yeah.
emotions and like the auditory input to that movie the first time you watched it. And that's again for this soundtrack. There are other soundtracks that will have better individual songs on it.
Yeah.
And again, in particular, especially if it's a movie about music or the music industry or working at a music like High Fidelity is going to have a bunch of good songs in it, of course.
Mhm.
But as an individual piece that was just slapped together by a bunch of producers being like, we got to get this thing pumping. We got to go. Like that was the design of this was sure move a couple units for it. They didn't even do the full release of the soundtrack until 2007 from the 1986 film. The soundtrack didn't even come out in Japan until like almost the 90s. And then the full one with like the full score that we've been going on and on about didn't come out until 2007 with all 10 tracks. So like this was not their focus for the film in any way, shape, or form, and yet somehow just destroyed it. Like just if you need a workout mix, if you're having a rough day, if you're having a bad day, this movie helps. If you're having a good day, this movie improves it. Like there's no mood that is not better with. I will maybe don't play it at a funeral, but if it's mine, you can play this at the funeral.
Well, I mean, like at this point, I think that this episode needs to stand as a component of your will and testament, that at your funeral the death of Optimus Prime shall be played.
Here's what you think. You'd think that, but no, dare to be stupid. Just straight out of the casket. Bluetooth speaker in my hands. Just do this thing.
You know, I really hope that someday in the distant future, like let's just put that there, but that someday in the distant future when this is a concern, that I'm lucid enough at that point in time to remember this conversation from the year 2022, the second episode of what at that point will be, one of the most successful, if not the most successful podcast.
True. When you're just reflecting back on it.
Yeah. And I'm in my late 120s because, because technology, we're going to live that long.
Of course.
So it's fine.
It's a curse that we've given to ourselves to have to do this, but and in to paraphrase stand-up comedian Dana Gould, I would like my remains scattered on the beach, and also I do not want to be cremated.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. And but and as that is happening, the song "Dare to Be Stupid" will be playing.
Right, just cranking out
full blast.
So I want to give, if I can, a side suggestion to folks. First of all, I think the biggest sin of this podcast is that to do anything with it, we haven't been able to play any of this music, which I'm like all I want to do now is just crank these tunes as we're talking about them. But if you love some synth rocky music and you have not listened to Jeff Wayne's The War of the Worlds musical, do yourself a favor, play through that. Not every song in it is a banger like this thing, but you're going to get some of the most heavy synth music this side of the 80s that you're going to be able to get your hands on, and oh my god, it's magnificent. I've seen it live, I've got the records. It's, if you like this, you'll like that. I'm doing like the Genius Bar comparison thing for you.
I'll throw in there, like if obviously I already mentioned Rocky 4, which like could very easily, any track from that could very easily just appear in this movie and vice versa. But even the Transformers theme song, just play it over the fight with Drago. It doesn't matter. It still works. But if you are vibing off of this and you want something else, Tron, like the
Tron
original
and Tron
1982
Legacy.
Tron.
Tron Legacy,
and then Tron
Legacy.
Legacy.
Tron Legacy is good, but the Tron original soundtrack is fantastic.
Because like not just the original score, which like Tron has an awesome original score, but like the diegetic music that's sort of like the soundtrack. There are some great songs, 80s songs, early 80s songs that are in Tron. That if you want to get pumped, like if you want some great 80s hype songs, that's another really good one. Awesome. Like, hey, I think we did it. Like I think that we've now recorded a podcast. Is there anything left? We didn't really like get into your personal connection, I guess. Like
I can tell you, like the first, I remember the first time I heard. I mean, because it was the first time watching the movie, obviously. Yeah. Which again, as someone born in '85, like I was always out of sync a little bit with trends, but still loved me some Transformers. And I was over in my buddy's basement. We were, sitting around playing some PlayStation 1, enjoying the Jet Moto game, I believe. We had just finished reading our Wizard magazines we had picked up at the comic book store, really setting the scene for this early 90s, or late 90s kind of thing we're doing here. I can't remember dates. When did the PlayStation come out? It was the PlayStation had come out. I know that much because that's what we were watching this
So
on.
we're probably firmly in like the 96, 97 era.
Yeah. PlayStation 1. No, we were not watching it on PlayStation. It was VHS because I remember the distinct tracking lines on it now.
Well, the PlayStation 1 didn't play DVDs anyways,
no,
right?
PlayStation 1 didn't play DVDs.
PS2 did.
So there was tracking lines. And I was distracted doing other stuff, and I heard Weird Al coming from this thing, and I'm like, what are we watching the Weird Al? Do you guys got like the Al TV, like when he takes over MTV? Is that what's happening right now? Because I've just been hearing rock music, and I hadn't been paying attention. And I look over to this glorious scene of like Mad Max robots taking out other robots to a Weird Al song, and I demanded that my friend rewind the movie all the way to the start. And so he's like, "You've not been watching it this whole time." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. You're starting from the beginning, buddy." Like, this is what's happening. And we just sat there.
So for the kids in the audience, rewinding is like going back to the menu. Wait, hold up, because the kids in the audience don't know what the DVD menu is. It's like hitting the play from beginning button in Netflix. It takes 15 minutes, and it's horrendously loud. For some reason, the VCR is able to play at the regular speed with like not a ton of noise, definitely noise. Listen, definitely noise, okay?
Definitely noise.
You definitely can hear the VCR clacking away and playing this VHS tape. But then when you put it into rewind, it's going faster, yet somehow taking longer and making the most noise you could imagine. Mm-hmm. So, like, watching movies late at night when you're supposed to be asleep, don't rewind. Just, you cannot let it go. You cannot rewind. So you were asking a lot of your friend.
This soundtrack is what made me turn my attention to this film, which has become one of my favorite things to rewatch. Again, just for the nostalgia and for the feels. Yeah. I will definitely say, like, not the best movie ever, but still better than a lot of stuff we get these days. There's still like actual characters and development, and like, the heroes are always going to win and the bad guys are always going to be beat. But again, just from the point of view of like icing out most of your main heroes for the start, if you're watching this for the first time, the feeling of no one is safe is more real than any other film I've watched in my life. Like every other Marvel film or whatever you're watching these days, you're like, the main character is gonna be fine. Or if they are gonna die, it's gonna be at the end in the biggest moment of the film. 20 minutes in, your main cast is dust, literally dusted. Yeah. And you're just like, all right, well, I don't know who any of these guys are, but I do not feel safe with them. Like, we're not going to be okay, everybody.
Yeah, these are not the guys. These are not the guys. And if the guys that we know as like the ones who like defeated the Decepticons, if they can't stand up to these guys, and like there's a bigger threat in this movie, I don't know how Judd Nelson and this kid that he's hanging out with are going to do it. The kid does have like a robot suit at one point.
He's got an exosuit, which I don't understand how it doesn't break every bone in his body, but because it also transforms.
Turns into like to a motorcycle sort of thing.
I'm looking at it right now. I've got one on my shelf, but it's next to my Grimlock. So
yeah, I mean, like for my money, there are a bunch of Transformers movies, and the only ones worth watching are Transformers the movie and Bumblebee. I obviously with two kids, I think about this a lot, and like when I'm going to introduce them to certain things, and like they've seen both of them, the 6-year-old and the 3-year-old have seen all of the Jurassic Park films except for Fallen Kingdom, because I can't be bothered to watch Fallen Kingdom again. But that's not for lack of not for extreme violent content, but just because like I don't want to subject myself to that terrible story. Like the Transformers movies. We've even watched the Michael Bay produced Ninja Turtles films. Because actually, I was going to say, the second one is actually a really good Ninja Turtles movie.
The elevator from the first one, the elevator scene from the first one and the second movie are fun.
Yeah, bingo. You nailed it. We are in perfect sync on that. And what I was saying earlier about there being a definitive version of every like 80s 90s theme song, um, as a matter of fact, Out of the Shadows has the definitive version of the Ninja Turtles theme song. I
Interesting.
the theme song that plays over the credits, because not only is it a perfect like update recreation of the original theme song, it doesn't mess with it, right? Like it does it justice, it does it right. It doesn't try to get fancy or weird with it, like, oh, we're gonna do our version, our spin. It just like, hey, here's just like a high fidelity this band playing the Ninja Turtles theme song. But then it breaks down into the rap, right? Like into like,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, now we're gonna tell you about all the Ninja Turtle stuff and Bebop and Rocksteady and the Shredder and Krang and whatever. But it has a bridge in it that is go ninja go ninja go, so it brings that in, even though that has nothing to do
No,
with Out of the Shadows.
but you need
it's
to
just
bring it
like
in.
it's just like, but you guys know that this is awesome, so like we put it in the song. So
So
it's
a
like it's a
thing I miss from sorry, not to detract. Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I'm just yeah, like we've watched those. We haven't watched any of the Bay Transformers stuff.
You don't need to.
I did start watching Bumblebee with Kara at one point. This I think was before Cassie was born, but she kind of lost interest in it because it is a little bit of a slower movie. But that's
Mhm.
what I like about it, is that it's got the 80s kid finds alien vibe, right? Like the ET
It's a robot
Mac
horse
and me
girl
sort of
movie.
vibe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yes, exactly.
You
Uh,
find a
uh,
horse, you tame the horse, you go on an adventure with a horse, but it's
yeah.
Bumblebee.
But it's
Um,
a yeah.
I think we lost something again as a nation when we stopped having movie songs that just explain the movie you watched. Like the end of Adam's Family does
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
You got a bunch of horror movies. Like Alice Cooper did some stuff for the Friday series, I think. Will Smith, obviously. You watch Men in Black 3, and you're like, that movie was okay. And then Pitbull comes out at the end, and you're like, this whole movie's ruined now. I'm at the credits, and now you've ruined the movie, and I can't
Yeah.
watch this. Like,
Yeah, no, yeah, I agree. Like I think Men in Black might have been the last movie to really do it. Wild Wild West kind of does, but not
the
as
music video
well.
for Wild Wild West was pretty good, though.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
But I mean, like that song is the best part of that movie existing. Although, like, let's be real. Let's break it down for a second, okay? Wild Wild West, not that bad. It's really
John
not that
Peters
bad.
finally, I mean, like, listen, he finally got his robot spider
Yep.
that we know he's been wanting for
Yeah.
so long. He wanted it in Sandman, didn't get it. Wanted it in Superman, didn't
And
get it.
and
Wild
look,
Wild West, here we
yeah,
go. Giant spider third act.
it's not Will Smith's best performance or best movie, right? Like it's not his best sort of like heroic leading man. Kevin Kline kind of not really, doesn't really vibe with the rest of the movie. You know what I mean? Like he just never
He's in a
kind
different
of,
movie than everyone else is
yeah,
in.
he never kind of syncs up. Selma Hayek, no complaints.
No, I mean,
I
never gonna get a
Yeah,
complete
no,
con on Selma
no
Hayek.
complaints. Selma Hayek, I just put her in movies. That's fine. But what does take that movie from forgettable to worthwhile for me? Kenneth Branagh,
Oh,
great movie villain.
I
Great movie
mean,
villain.
and
Like just
obviously terrible character. Like
yeah,
every things he's
obviously.
saying do not
Yeah,
age good. Even when it's like, no, he's a racist from the South. Yeah, do we
yeah,
need that? Like, it's like,
yeah,
but in terms of someone like this man came to play, he is
yeah,
prepared for
yeah.
this
Like
day.
chewing the scenery, like because you need a bad guy in that movie where at the end of it you're like, yeah, this actually makes sense that he would have a giant robot spider, right? Which is what John Peters was looking for, is a movie where that made sense. Now it could have made sense in a Superman movie. If I ever get to talk to Kevin Smith about that, I'm like,
I'm
I mean,
sure
like,
he's
you
in
were
no
gonna
way
do,
exhausted by doing
yeah,
this.
you were gonna do, like, if you're gonna do Brainiac, then a giant robot spider actually works perfectly, but that's fine. So it's like you don't even have to like wedge it in there. That is how that movie should end.
Well, do you
If
know anything
Brainiac
about
is the bad
spiders? Spiders are the
guy,
deadliest hunters in the animal kingdom.
bingo.
No problem.
um, but yeah, like that character, having a giant robot spider at the end of the movie, it just makes logical sense. in a movie that defies logic at every turn. That is the only part that actually does make any sense, because it is the only part that was important to the producer. So
This
yeah.
conversation is like gently disassociating from itself, and I love that.
But it is all connected because,
There's
Men
giant
in Black and
robots.
giant robots. It's
There's no
fine.
giant robot spider that I can name off the top of my head, except for Black Arachnia and Tarantulas. I got 2,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
never
There you go.
mind.
There you go.
Got there.
I
I used to get coffee for the guys from Beast Wars. We could throw that in the mix.
The funny thing about Transformers is that, other than like sort of just my familiarity from a pop culture standpoint with it, the only real memory I have of Transformers from being an actual kid in the 90s, um, was an argument that my brother and another older kid were having about whether or not any of the Autobots could fly, because for some reason in the original series, all of the Decepticons could fly. It didn't matter what type of vehicle
Oh
they
yeah, no, like
transformed into.
Megatron could just jump into Soundwave. I think could just give it if he
Yeah,
wanted.
they would just like levitate away, right? Like they could just like fly, but none of the Autobots could fly because they were cars. Except that like because my brother was on the side of arguing like, but some of the Autobots can fly because some of them turn into flying vehicles, and like I like that's my earliest memory of Transformers. But I didn't get into Transformers until Beast Wars, which we knew in Canada as Beasties, right? um like, so Optimus Primal was my Optimus Prime. And when people like get into arguments on the internet, in the Transformer fandom, and somebody throws the truck not monkey
Truck not
argument
monkey.
out there, I'm like, you know what? Like, no, I'm sorry, but Gary Chalk is the voice of
And
Optimus Prime,
as much as I
not
love
Peter
Ron
Cullen.
Perlman, I love me some Ron Perlman.
Mm.
Excited for the upcoming film to see what terrible things they do to that. I'm gonna be watching it in so many ways like a car crash, but we'll see how it goes. Again, I sure would like to stay employed, but we'll see how this is Ron Perlman being the voice of Optimus Primal in that over Gary Chalk is just ridiculous. Like, come on,
Yeah, to me, it's one of those things where, like, if you're gonna get Peter Cullen to come in and
right?
like to this complete bastardization of the character that he made famous, and he's gonna rock that throughout all of those movies. It, to me, like, if you're gonna do Beast Wars, then you should be showing that respect to Gary Chalk. Now, I also think that you and I probably have um a I don't want to say inflated, because I think that he absolutely deserves it. But I think it might be amplified. It's amplified, not inflated. It's
I
amplified
don't
by
know.
the
I've
fact
gone back and
that we're
re-listened to it. He does a really
Vancouver.
good voice.
He does, like, but I mean, like, but I've had conversations with Gary
That's true.
Chalk.
This is true. Yeah,
Like, he almost came to my birthday party one time,
yeah.
because I am friends with him on Facebook, even though I don't really know him, but I'm friends with him on Facebook. And a conversation started, and he came into the conversation thread on Facebook randomly. And then our mutual friend Victor Hunter was like, Mike, if you don't take this as an opportunity to invite Gary Chalk to your birthday party, I'll never forgive you. So I did. And then he said, I'll see if I like he was like basically like, oh, I'll try and swing by. And he didn't.
But
And
it's
I
still
didn't expect
nice.
him to.
Still
I didn't expect
nice.
him to. But the fact that he humored us children in
Yeah,
that
yeah.
moment, of like, so that I could say to Victor that day, Optimus Primal might be coming to my birthday party, you
Right.
guys, which is like the dream of, I think, every kid who watched Beasties on
Yeah,
YTV.
I will
So
say, like, where he got his nice catchphrase of like, well, that's just Prime. Like, he got
yeah,
that in there. He got to say that all the time. Like, every catchphrase and stuff that gets repeated from Transformers is from this 1986 movie. Like, anything that gets like the memeified of like, like freedom
yeah,
is the
yeah, yeah,
right of all sentient beings and that kind of stuff,
yeah,
like all of that, this movie gave to it. This movie is the core of what made Transformers important, in
yeah,
my opinion. Like,
yeah.
TV
Like,
shows on every day at home, but you can kind of glaze it over. This was the experience, and this
well, yeah.
soundtrack was part of that.
Transformers the movie was like the exclamation point on the phenomenon that was Transformers. in the 80s, right? Like,
Yeah. And like the G.I. Joe
it
movie did
definitely,
not do the same thing. G.I. Joe
no,
movie, it came out, I own it, it's fine. It did not grab the imagination of people. It is like, if they are referencing it anything else, it'd be like, okay, cool. Like I don't catch, like I'm not wise to
yeah.
that. I don't actually, I should check the soundtrack for that. Maybe that's a banger as well. Never even looked it up. But this,
Yeah,
I want to do
G.I.
that
Joe
thing.
the movie is not better than the cartoon show. I think that's the key on
No.
that one. Is that like Transformers the movie definitely takes the cartoon and then like cranks it up to 11, right? In every way imaginable. But G.I. Joe the movie is like it's like a pale shadow of like those first few episodes. Like cuz G.I. Joe did a wonderful thing of like the stories were broken into parts, right? So it's like every sort of like main GI Joe thing, it's like, oh, Cobra wants to do this one thing, they're going to build a weather machine, and then that weather machine is going to allow them to take over the world, right? And it wouldn't just be one episode, it wouldn't just be one 22-minute episode where we would deal with the weather machine. It would be like a 3 or 4 part arc, and like that's what made, I think, GI Joe like worth tuning in every week, was like, oh, what's going to happen next, right? And so they were essentially mini movies on their own already, and then the movie came out and it was like, I don't know, man, like, is that guy a snake or something? This is too much. Like, you're pushing this whole concept too far of like, the snake was a motif, guys. It wasn't like a they didn't need to
No.
actually be snakes, right?
Well,
But then the movie was like,
we've
they
been
are.
talking about this, I went and looked up, of course, the various artists' soundtrack here. First of all, it looks like it's just a score. Like I'm not actually seeing the same kind of soundtrack we're getting for
Yeah.
this. It's all like Hasbro Presents kind of stuff. But I will say, track 15 is just called Hiss with like 12 S's, which I will give that's amazing.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now we have absolutely done it. We've absolutely
yeah.
podcasted.
Oh my, this is as long as the feature film now.
You could actually go ahead and just like hit play on the movie and hit play on this podcast, and
you
what
could
you'll
ruin
discover,
both of them.
yeah, what you'll discover is that we planned none of this and nothing syncs up.
No.
Unless you play it backwards.
Oh
then
then
you've wasted, now you've wasted 3 hours. So you're welcome. I absolutely fantastic talking about the Transformers : the movie hyphen the soundtrack with you, Tyler. If people enjoyed this, other than going back and listening to old episodes of ThunderQuack, where can they enjoy your content on the internet that you would like them to do that?
You can find me on TikTok at Mr. Nicol, MisterNickel. I used to try a lot harder at TikTok, and now I don't. And that's my review of my TikTok channel. So if you want that action, you know where to find it, baby.
If people go far enough back in your TikTok, they'll discover where that descent began. With you realizing that like the more effort you put in, the less bang you got for your buck.
It was, in terms of diminishing returns, it was astounding of how the more I cared about something I uploaded, the less it hit. And then the stuff where I'm like, I'm just going to I might delete this. We'll see what I do. And then that one gets like 2 million views and a New York Times article written about it. And then the rest of the stuff is like, I worked for hours on this video. And they're like, and 1,000 people moderately cared.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Anywhere else you got to hype up your art account.
It's a Dork Zombie on Instagram and Redbubble. If you're like, my day sure could use some digital portraits of scantily clad people that Mr. Nicol likes, and I'm like, hey, these are my friends, and we should respect and celebrate their bodies. Then that's really selling it. That's how I do.
It is a worthwhile follow, everybody. You should go check it out. And if you're on Instagram already, you should probably follow me on Instagram and check out my art as well, which is at Archangel Wolf, Archangel with a K and Wolf with a U.
Not only is that good art, but it's art for that art. That's art you can actually look at while you're on the bus without worrying about who's looking over your shoulder. So there's that bonus.
Listen, I admire you for creating the art that makes you happy, because I'll say that, like, I it's not that I don't draw art like that from time to time. I just don't have the guts to publish it on the internet, usually. Um, so
Track
yeah.
33 off of the G.I. Joe soundtrack is Single and Groovy, and I just wanted to get that in here at the end.
Man,
17 is Welcome to Bayou World, which is, I now have to listen to this goddamn soundtrack, I guess.
I don't listen. I'm trying to remember the plot of GI Joe the movie and where Single and Groovy would fit into that.
Uh, Number 26 is Prelude to Pandemonium, which I will say sounds like a film noir I would watch. And 28 is Fun and War Games. Whoever wrote the names of these tracks had the best goddamn time of their life.
It sounds like a Michael Giacchino score, which like if you want, I mean, mileage is going to vary depending on how much you like dad jokes, but if you want to have a good chuckle, yeah, just open up any Michael Giacchino soundtrack, and look at what he titles his songs, because he does not take it seriously.
Apparently, this one was written by Robert J. Walsh, famous for making the soundtracks to Revenge of the Ninjas and My Little Pony: the movie, and Johnny Douglas, who wrote for the Transformers, The Incredible Hulk, and Spider-Man. So that's, you know what? I know what's up next on my stream and download list, and it's G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, the soundtrack.
Hasbro really like they kind of just like settled into that idea of we're gonna make movies, but didn't bother to like workshop any of the titles. They were just like Transformers : the movie, GI Joe : the movie, My Little Pony : the movie, done, print it. And I think it worked out pretty well for them, actually. They're still around.
I mean,
so.
I think they're doing okay. I
Yeah,
think they're
yeah.
fine.
They just got all of the licenses. Somehow they managed to make the best Ninja Turtles figures in my collection. Because they did the Power Rangers Ninja Turtles, because they've got a Power Rangers license right now, and these Power Rangers Ninja Turtles are just like, oh my god!
If you've not
so
seen the Green Ranger Shredder mashup out there, listener, look it up. That's that's good times.
Oh man. Anyways, this is the problem with podcasting with you, Tyler, is that we can never end. It never stops unless we forcibly, like in a very contrived manner, say, this is it, you guys, we're done. This is the end of the podcast. Thank you for listening.
No, you hang up. No, you hang up.
Exactly. Man, who's next up on the list? You know what? I'm actually not 100% sure, because I do know that I have at the end of September, well, because this one's the beginning of September. It's the beginning of October.
Okay.
I have Ty Black, one of my absolute favorite people on the internet. She has a YouTube channel called Wit and Folly, where she does sort of like these deep dive video essays into myth and storytelling, with a really big focus on sort of like the Campbellian Joseph Campbell hero with 1,000 faces, hero's journey type stuff. And we're gonna talk about A Knight's Tale, which I am very excited.
Speaking of soundtracks, speaking of goddamn soundtracks,
hell yes, because that one has a hell of a soundtrack. So that one is coming up in October. 4 weeks from this episode. But I have been talking with Marie Claire Gould from What the Force, and I think we are going to do an episode in between those two as well. So I kind of have been saying on other podcasts, like, the thing about Perfect 10 is that I really, really love this concept. And the original plan was to do it every 4 weeks, and I'm still kind of going to stick to that, except that I also might not stick to that. I might, if I can line up guests and get episodes out on a more frequent basis than that, I'm not going to hold back. But you'll get an episode at least every 4 weeks. but
I'll come back. I'll talk about more dumb stuff I like. I don't care.
This is my fear with the not having a permanent co-host, right? Is the fear of like burning out my friends and like them being like, oh, Mike's asking me to be on his podcast again. But I do also think that the conceit of the podcast of like, please come talk about a thing that you love is maybe
I'm
I
trying
won't.
to look at my DVD shelf right now to think about what next thing
What the next thing
I would
is. Yeah.
talk about as a
So
perfect 10, because this one jumped out immediately for perfect 10, but my next one's gonna take some thinking. I think
you're gonna have to, yeah.
wait, no. Animated Ghostbusters. Okay, we're good.
Okay. Yeah, no, easy. But yeah, so if Marie Claire and I can work that out, in between now and when Ty and I are scheduled to record, that episode will be about the webtoon comic Lore Olympus, which if you haven't checked out, I have just recently started reading it, and I started reading it and literally messaged her. Like, I think I got about 8 episodes into it, and messaged MC and was like, hey, when you come on Perfect 10 eventually, when your schedule allows, I would love to talk about Lore Olympus with you. And she was like, well, I want to talk about that, so let's figure it out. So hopefully we can figure that out. We can schedule that in amongst her very, very busy schedule, and get that out in 2 weeks from the time that you're listening to this. But if not, then the next episode will be A Knight's Tale with Ty at the beginning of October.
Nice.
And no matter what, in between there, you're also going to get episodes of Forced Perspectives, which, Tyler, you're going to have to come on Forced Perspectives and talk about Star Wars with me at some point as well.
What's a Star Wars?
What's a Star Wars? Yeah. But the next episode of that, which will also be in 2 weeks, is going to be with Curtis Finley. So,
Nice.
which, like, I haven't talked with Curtis about Star Wars very much. Only the episodes that we did a 3-parter on Pullbox Podcast at one point when the Marvel stuff, when 2015, they took over the license again. And, when the trade paperbacks came out, we reviewed the first 3 trades.
Will you
so that's
call
really
me up
the
when
only
you need
time
to review Lego Star Wars, and I will be there.
Well, the great thing about Forced Perspectives is that it's essentially the same thing as this show, only it's specifically about Star Wars, where I'm just going to ask you, like, what's your favorite part of Star Wars? And then that's what we're going to talk about. So think about that. So that's it. That's like all my plugs for everything. I thank you to our Patreon producer, Brian Murawski. If you want to become a Patreon producer, you can do that by heading to patreon.com/ThunderQuack. It's the $20 level. It just gets you a shout out on the podcast. So, if that's worth it to you, then go do it. But
and if you use code potato salad, I will draw you at least one Autobot.
There you
just
go.
for this, just until the next one of these podcasts comes out. Once the next one's up, if there's already another episode after this, I won't do it anymore. But if you do it, I'll do that. I'm saying that's true. That's the thing I'll do. I'll give a shit.
There you
go. I want to say I didn't say it's going to be a good drawing,
but it will be a drawing.
But it'll be a drawing.
If you wanted to get this episode early, if you're sitting there on the Friday and you're going, I really wish I could have listened to this on Tuesday, then all it's going to cost you is $1 a month. $1 a month. Wow. And you know what? You can pay for a whole year in advance and get 10% off.
Yeah, and I am not doing it for the $1 a month crowd, though. I'm sorry, guys. You gotta.
No, that's for the $20. Okay,
it's $20.
Okay. Well worth it, you guys. I say that because Tyler's not going to get any of that money. I am.
No, I'm not. I'm not even looking for anything. This was also not something we discussed beforehand. I decided this right now.
To be fair, we didn't discuss very much about this podcast at all beforehand,
and yet somehow we've discussed absolutely nothing for an hour and a half now. And if you're still listening, again, you're better than most people. You're a superior human. I don't know how else to say it.
I mean, it's just a fact of science, right? That's it.
Okay, we can
ThunderQuack.com. There are other podcasts and stuff. You'll get the whole rigmarole after this, anyways. Thank you, Tyler, for doing this. It is.
I had no fun whatsoever.
Oh,
it was great.
I'm sure we will have you back on one of the podcasts very soon. To talk about, I guess Ghostbusters or Star Wars.
Ghostbusters, Red Dwarf, Hitchhiker's Guide, whatever you need. I'm here for it.
There you go.
This literally just looking at things on my desk right now.
Excellent. Thank you guys for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode. ThunderQuack Perfect 10 is hosted by me, Michael Cohn. Follow us on Twitter at ThunderQuackPod, on Instagram at ThunderQuackPodcast, on Facebook at ThunderQuack, and join us on Discord at thunderquack.com/Discord. Support the podcast by heading to patreon.com/ThunderQuack to get early access, bonus episodes, and the ThunderQuack Perfect 10 Pop Quiz. ThunderQuack Perfect 10 is part of the ThunderQuack Podcast Network. Thanks for listening.
But anyways, out of that poster, the thing that I find
Yeah.
most upsetting is an eye for an eye after the list of terrible things this gang has done. Because I'm like, does that mean she's gonna do that to the gang? Because that's bad too. Like the killed part,
Yeah.
okay, but that first part sounds bad.
Yeah. And also, like, I don't think that's going to have the desired effect. Of
No,
like, eye for
you're
an
not
eye.
going to be able to get that one. Not if you're looking like you are on that poster. Good for you, Linda Blair. But Jesus.
Exactly. Yeah, because the teenage part of me is like, I need to watch this movie immediately. Right.
Oh, look up some screenshots for it. There's one of her wide-eyed holding a knife to a guy's throat. It's just like, wow, there's a lot going on in this movie.
Okay, yeah, I think I'll do what I usually do with 80s movies of this caliber, and that is I will watch the terrible 1980s trailer, because there was no such thing as a good trailer in the 80s. They're all fantastic and wonderful to watch, but like not
it's
necessarily effective, right? Yeah. And then I'll check out some screenshots.
There is a VHS out there called Linda Blair How to Get Revenge, which is supposed to be like a training tape for things you can do to get revenge on people, and 99% of them are deeply illegal. It's like it's literally like, hey, you know what you could do? Take the hose for someone's house and run it through their mail slot so it floods their house. And you're like, yeah, that's definitely a crime.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
you could take their address and sign them up to a whole bunch of really offensive mailing lists. Yep, that's a federal crime if you're using the mail. That's cool.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I'm gonna hit stop now. For real.